At some point, a truly bizarre idea came into Arvend's mind as a way to have a child. He asked his father to sleep with his wife Mera, so she could get pregnant. It was an outrageous and almost unthinkable request, something that had never even crossed his father's mind. But despite the absurdity, Arvend kept pleading, convincing both his father and Mera to agree to the plan, all while keeping it a secret from his mother, Sushmita. Hello, and welcome to our channel. Today, we're diving into another chilling real-life story, one that will leave you shocked and unsettled. This time, our story takes us to the city of Colombo in Sri Lanka, where a horrifying case unfolded. It involves a son-in-law who took the life of his own mother-in-law in their apartment. But this isn't just a straightforward crime. The case gets even more twisted as it reveals how the son-in-law, the in-laws, and even the husband are all indirectly entangled in this tragedy. What really happened? What's the full story behind this disturbing case? Stick with us, and let's unravel it together. Before we jump into the story, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to share this story with your friends too. Now, let's dive in. Our story begins with a man named Arvend, born in 1990 in the city of Colombo, Sri Lanka. He had a sister who got married in 2017 and moved out of town, leaving Arvend to live with his parents in their apartment in Colombo. His father, Tarun, was a retired civil servant from the Department of Social Affairs and now stayed busy as a party advisor. His mother, Sushmita, was a retired teacher who mostly spent her time at home. Arvend himself was known as a simple and hard-working guy. He was devoted to his parents and took pride in caring for them. In terms of education, he was diligent and focused. During his undergraduate years, he met Mera, a beautiful and intelligent woman. The two hit it off, graduated together, and started dating. While things seemed perfect, there was a challenge. Despite appearing healthy, Arvend struggled with fertility issues. According to his doctor, it wasn't impossible for him to have children, but it would require consistent therapy and some dietary restrictions. Arvend was upfront with Mera about his condition, and to his relief, she didn't mind. Their love prevailed, and they got married on December 11, 2018, when both were 28 years old. After their wedding, Mera moved in with Arvend and his parents in their apartment. At the time, Arvend was running a granite and tile flooring business about 11 kilometers away, along with other branches in nearby cities. Since he often had to travel for work, he asked Mera to leave her job as a receptionist and stay home to take care of his parents. This arrangement, however, marked the beginning of trouble between Mera and her mother-in-law, Sushmita. According to some neighbors, tensions between Mera and Sushmita started brewing just weeks after the wedding. The two frequently argued, snapping at each other and exchanging insults. Sushmita didn't seem to like Mera from the start, accusing her of being manipulative with money and only marrying Arvend for financial security. She even called Mera a gold digger, who didn't mind that her husband had fertility issues. Sushmita also criticized Mera for being lazy and unhygienic, complaining that she rarely washed dishes or swept the house. Mera, on the other hand, thought her mother-in-law was obsessive about cleanliness. For example, if someone touched Sushmita's hand or shoulder, she would immediately shower and insult them as dirty. At first, Mera tried to tolerate the constant nagging and vented her frustrations to Arvend. But as time passed, she grew bolder and started standing up to Sushmita's overly critical behavior. This left Arvend caught in the middle, unsure of whom to side with. He often pleaded with both women to try and understand each other, but the situation only grew worse. Once, after a particularly nasty argument, Mera ran away to her parents' house. However, Arvend went to bring her back, urging her to be patient and tolerate his mother, who he said had grown childlike in her old age. On another occasion, Mera asked Arvend if they could move out and live separately from his parents to avoid further conflict. But Arvend refused, explaining that his father's health wasn't great and they had a duty to care for his parents. The arguments continued, escalating to the point where the two women began bad-mouthing each other to the neighbors. Sushmita would complain that Mera was a disrespectful and negligent daughter-in-law, while Mera confided in others that her mother-in-law was a controlling monster. Instead of resolving their issues, they spent more time demonizing each other, and the tension in the household reached a boiling point. 3 months into their marriage, Mera and Arvind were still struggling to conceive. The doctor's updates were discouraging, saying that Arvind wasn't showing much progress in overcoming his fertility issues. They tried various therapies, and even resorted to a strange, nerve-wracking ritual with a witch doctor. But nothing worked. Then, out of nowhere, a shocking and unnatural idea popped into Arvind's head. He asked his father to sleep with his wife Mera, so she could get pregnant. It was an absolutely insane request, something his father, Tarun, had never even considered. Naturally, his father was appalled. But Arvind was relentless. He begged and pleaded, convincing both his father and Mera to go along with the plan, all while keeping it a secret from his mother, Sushmita. It's honestly mind-boggling why they didn't explore more reasonable options, like adoption or IVF. Instead, the three of them came to an agreement, possibly thinking it would be easier to keep things quiet and avoid any unnecessary drama. They especially wanted to keep Sushmita in the dark, as she already had a strong dislike for Mera and would likely cause a huge scene if she found out. This twisted secret was theirs alone to bear. Fast forward to April 2019. One day, while returning from the supermarket, Sushmita caught Mera leaving her in-laws' bedroom. Suspicious, she asked. "What were you doing in my room?" Mera casually replied, "Just bringing coffee," while Tarun sat on the edge of the bed inside. Though the explanation seemed innocent enough, Sushmita couldn't shake the uneasy feeling. Over time, more strange incidents fueled her suspicions. One night, she noticed Arvind staying up late in the living room, watching television until the early hours of the morning. Meanwhile, Tarun came out of his bedroom, with Mera following behind him. Alarmed, Sushmita tried to confront her son, but Arvind quickly deflected and coaxed her back to her room. These events were small, but they left a lasting impression on Sushmita, planting seeds of doubt that grew in her mind. At one point, Sushmita confided in Arvind's younger brother, who lived out of town. But instead of taking her seriously, he dismissed her concerns, suggesting she might be hallucinating due to the side effects of her diabetes medication. Still, Sushmita couldn't shake her suspicions. Then, in August 2019, Mera and Arvind announced some big news. Mera was 3 months pregnant. The entire family was overjoyed, including Sushmita, who thought to herself, "Wow, maybe my son's fertility treatments actually worked." But curiosity got the better of her. Sushmita decided to visit Arvind's doctor to check on his progress. To her shock, the doctor revealed that Arvind's condition hadn't improved and, medically speaking, the pregnancy seemed impossible. Still, the doctor suggested it could be a miracle, a blessing from God, reminding her that nothing is impossible when it comes to divine will. While the doctor's explanation comforted others, it only deepened Sushmita's suspicions. Her instincts told her that Mera's pregnancy wasn't a miracle at all. It was the result of something much more scandalous. Convinced she was right, she confronted Arvind, accusing him of being blind to the obvious, that his wife was having an affair with his father, Tarun. "That baby can't possibly be yours," she said. "It must be your father's." But Arvind dismissed her claims, insisting she was overthinking everything. Even Tarun denied the accusations outright, saying Sushmita's suspicions were pure imagination. With no confession from either of them, Sushmita reluctantly backed off. Still, her doubts didn't go away. Whenever the house was quiet, Sushmita would corner Mera, throwing out accusations like, "You've been messing around with my husband, haven't you?" Each time, Mera would deny everything and retreat to her room, avoiding further confrontation. Late at night, Mrs. Sushmita would sneak around the apartment with her cell phone, trying to catch her husband and daughter-in-law in the act. She was determined to find proof of the affair she believed was happening, maybe a photo or a recording. But no matter how hard she tried, she never found anything concrete. By this point, Mera was already pregnant, and nothing seemed out of the ordinary anymore. The closest Sushmita came to finding evidence was when she noticed her son, Arvind, whispering with his father more than usual. One day, she went through her husband Tarun's phone and found an old text message from Arven's number. It read, "In an hour, just come in, Dad." That was enough to fuel her suspicions. Sushmita was convinced it was Mera who sent the message, using Arven's phone as a cover. But despite her theories, she couldn't get her son to believe her accusations, leaving her increasingly frustrated. In mid-September 2019, Tarun contracted the coronavirus and was hospitalized. Sushmita spent most of her time at the hospital, visiting and watching over him. On September 19, 2019, while Mera, now 4 months pregnant, was home alone, Sushmita unexpectedly returned from the hospital around 1 p.m. When Mera greeted her with a polite, "How's he doing, ma'am?" Sushmita snapped, "It's none of your business. Why do you care? Do you miss him?" she shouted. Fueled by anger, she began breaking everything on the dining table, all while hurling insults and cruel words at Mera. The noise quickly drew the attention of their neighbors, who rushed to the door of the apartment. They banged on it, calling out, but no one answered. They tried to call the family, but only had Mr. Tarun's number. Out of options, the neighbors contacted Tarun at the hospital to tell him something was wrong. Alarmed, Tarun immediately called his son, Arvind, and urged him to go home and check on the situation. By 4 p.m., Arvind arrived at the apartment. He pounded on the door, but no one came to answer. Everything had gone eerily silent inside. A neighbor suggested climbing from their window to Arvind's bedroom window, but that didn't work. Finally, the apartment security guard brought a ladder, and Arvind managed to climb through the kitchen window. Inside, he found his mother, Sushmita, lying motionless on the floor. She wasn't breathing. Panicked, he searched the apartment and found his wife, Mera, lying on the bed in their bedroom. She looked disoriented but unharmed. As Arvind called the police, Mera tearfully told him a story. A robber had broken into the apartment, attacked his mother, and fled. But as Arvind began to break down, Mera couldn't hold it in any longer. Sobbing, she confessed that she was the one who had attacked Sushmita. She begged for his forgiveness, saying she hadn't meant for things to go so far. The tragedy was devastating for Arvind, his sister, and his father. They had hoped Mera and Sushmita could coexist peacefully, especially after Mera became pregnant. Instead, the situation had spiraled into violence. While they couldn't entirely blame Mera, they knew Sushmita had treated her cruelly. They couldn't excuse her actions either. Sushmita's resentment toward Mera had been evident from the start. Even before the wedding, she had disapproved of Mera and found ways to undermine her. The family had hoped marriage would ease the tension, but it only made things worse. Physical altercations between the two women became common. According to neighbors, Sushmita once threw a potted plant at Mera for no apparent reason. Mera told investigators that on the day of the incident, her mother-in-law, Sushmita, came home from the hospital more furious than ever. She began throwing objects at Mera, glasses, teapots, while shouting harsh insults aimed not just at Mera, but also at her unborn child. Things escalated when Sushmita threw a clothes dryer at Mera's shoulder, then grabbed an iron rod from the shed and hit her on the head and stomach. Fearing for her own safety and the life of her baby, Mera fought back. She managed to grab the iron rod from her mother-in-law and retaliated. After enduring months of abuse, Mera had finally reached her breaking point. In a fit of desperation and rage, she struck Sushmita repeatedly until her mother-in-law collapsed and died right there in the apartment. When the police arrived, Arvind and his father, Tarun, told them everything, including the bizarre and secretive arrangement between Tarun and Mera, initiated by Arvind, in their desperate attempt to have a biological child. While both men expressed regret and remorse, Arvind's sister was furious. She blamed them for enabling the twisted situation that ultimately led to their mother's death. Although the case was shocking, no charges were filed against Arvind or his father. The police focused their investigations solely on Mera, who confessed to killing her mother-in-law in self-defense. Due to her pregnancy and the ongoing pandemic, her trial was postponed. During this time, authorities provided support for Mera as she prepared to give birth to her child, who was born in late February 2020. While Mera awaited trial, Arvind and his father continued living in the family apartment. Mehra, on the other hand, was sent to a special prison facility designed for nursing mothers, ensuring she could safely breastfeed her baby and avoid pandemic-related risks. The trial finally took place in February 2021 at the Colombo High Court. After reviewing the evidence, the court found Mehra guilty of assault leading to her mother-in-law's death. She was sentenced to 15 years in prison. Custody of her child was awarded to Arvind, who vowed to raise the baby in the apartment where the family's tragic story began. Though the legal proceedings had ended, the emotional scars left by this bizarre and tragic series of events would haunt the family forever. What lessons can we learn from this story?